Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCard.info coming at you after the conclusion of the Food City 500 at Bristol, a very unusual and placid race, I guess we could say, especially given the way the spring race went last year with similar concerns about tire wear going into it. However, the race itself turned out very similar to what we saw last summer, with, of course, a utterly dominant performance by Kyle Larson, trouncing the field here in a weekend where he was attempting to win all three races this weekend. Fell just short of that once again, this time on the Truck Series leg this week. We'll talk about the Xfinity and the Truck Series action here this evening as well. But unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Larson pulls off the victory, leading 411 of the 500 laps on a kind of unusual, in some respects, Bristol race, but perhaps with the concerns over this car, especially its performance on the short tracks, perhaps, not as surprising than in the same sense here, too. I'm sure, people are, feel free to vent to the comments and so forth here. I'm sure a lot of people are frustrated about this and everything, especially in the context of the car itself and the short track performance. I have to say, my first thought really, after this, I'm not overly frustrated with, to me, this is the lesser of two evils, as unbelievable as it may sound, versus having, something really chaotic and having a bunch of cautions and having multiple overtimes and restarts and somebody just kind of ends up with a win at the end of the day. We were having so many races that played out that way. I have to say that there were aspects of this that I kind of liked in an old school sense where, yeah, there were very few cautions. It was an endurance match. There were a lot of mechanical issues further back in the field. We saw an engine failure from Alex Bowman. It was a matter of just keeping up the pace. In fact, NASCAR posting earlier this week on their Classics channel highlights from one of those races that Cale Yarborough dominated back in the 70s when it was the asphalt surface and the bigger cars and everything, and you still had an utterly dominant performance in that race there. I think having a race play out to its natural conclusion, admittedly still with the stage cautions, it being an unfortunate feature in here, although I'm sure people probably feel differently about that. I'm not going to pretend it was a good race. I'm not going to pretend that I would want every race to play out this way. But, having, watched this over the years and seen dominant performances, especially from Hendrick teams here, and especially in the face of, something that personally, tragically happened involving the team, I couldn't help but think back to what happened back in 2004 with the plane crash after Martinsville and how determined all those Hendrick teams were to win that Atlanta race the very next week. And of course, condolences, certainly to the family of John Edwards, as well as with Al Pierce and Shigeaki Hattori here with what's been an unfortunate week here with the loss of three individuals in the sport here that each represented really critical elements of the sport itself. I guess, we'll go ahead and kind of go into an aside on that as well. I regret that I've never had the good fortune of meeting any of those individuals there, but I'm sure that, they were ones that, had just as big of a role at the racetracks I was attending there at the same time. Again, Hattori with his program in the Truck Series and winning the championship there with Brett Moffitt. Al Pierce's articles, I'm sure, have come up in videos that I've done here on this YouTube channel as well. I remembered his chronicle of the 1990s and leafing through pictures of that there. I remember doing a hospital trip, bringing that book with me as a kid and leafing through that and understanding the history of it. And it was good that it was brought up this week. Greg Fielden as well, another great historian, thankfully still with us here as well, getting some attention in the media this week as well. But Al Pierce deserves to be definitely mentioned in that same conversation there too. And then John Edwards, my goodness. I mean, everybody in the field seemed touched by him there, certainly, and what was brought up there at the same time. So again, leading off here at the beginning, condolences again to the families of all three. I think the track did a great job of making sure that they were mentioned in the invocation to all the races this weekend. And I think for some of the foibles of the Fox broadcast this weekend, especially on the Truck Series side, I thought that they did a really good job handling all three of those respectfully. I mean, it's difficult when you lose anyone that's so integral to the sport. But when you have a few of them in a row like that, even somebody like Al Pierce, who had, lived very, a very long life, competing, working in the media center for 50 plus Daytona 500s and so forth. It's still sad to lose that presence there in the sport. So again, condolences to them at the same time. But yeah, again, it was reminiscent to me. I felt like from the 2004 situation there with that, and it probably should have been less surprising that one of the Hendrick teams was going to be very dominant out there, and I guess perhaps even less so with Kyle Larson and the performance that he gave in this race last summer. So again, really, I think that's probably another factor in this, that I honestly don't feel that be pointed out there. But I've not really had too much of a problem with having races where it just naturally plays out this way, and you have a driver that's dominant and they're able to celebrate that dominance. I mean, we saw last week at Darlington, William Byron in a very similar situation, being very close to dominating another track that's very, very difficult for drivers to even lead the most laps on, never mind win, at Darlington there, and having that fall short there towards the end of the event. I mean, yes, through some heroics from the Denny Hamlin pit crew, and good to see them getting featured during this broadcast as well. Again, admittedly, I thought that was well worth that, very deserved, and I'm glad that they were featured in kind of that segment this week. So again, I don't want to whitewash all this and just pretend like everything was perfect, but again, there were elements of it that I really don't mind as much. Now, would I want every race to play out this way, where one driver just dominates and nobody else can get up there? No. And would I want one track to always be this way? I think I understand the concern there, especially given what we saw last summer with, again, a very similar dominant performance with Kyle Larson, just seeming to be in his own zip code and nobody able to do anything out there. Yes, admittedly, Bristol has had periods, again, mentioning Cale Yarborough earlier, and then, of course, Darrell Waltrip after that, times where drivers won multiple races in a row, and often by large margins. You look at some of the lap counts that those drivers led. We've been through a period of time now where we don't really see a driver be that dominant, at one track, lately. I mean, I think of Jimmy Johnson at Dover, or Rick Fontana back before it closed or something like that. But again, in this era, maybe a little bit less so. So again, it's tricky to approach something like this here, because, clearly something needs to be done with this car at the short tracks. I mean, I'm not the first to say it. I agree with the consensus on that. Something needs to be done, because we've seen, you watch an older race at Bristol, you watch an older race at Martinsville, even one that was dominant by those drivers, and you had a lot of racing throughout the field there. And there were some moments in this one too. And again, see, I have to kind of hedge myself a little bit on this, because I think, again, there were elements from this race that I thought were compelling. Certainly Spire Motorsports, for example, Carson Hocevar and Justin Haley in particular. McDowell really kind of had an off day. He was towards the back of the pack and lost a lap early, never seemed to really recover from that, had a pit penalty along the way. But Haley, and particularly Hocevar utterly crestfallen after having a great run, being in the top 5 for most of this race and being recognized as such. I really, really appreciated that in even this broadcast. I mean, it could have been better the way they were addressing it, but I thought Hocevar's performance in this was very impressive. He's tweeted earlier this week, kind of going one by one through all the races this year, where he had some speed, including Homestead, where he had that strategy and was trying to have a good run out there, and then the engine laid down, he ended up in last place. Again, I think that there was some interesting storylines here, even against the Kyle Larson deal. I mean, obviously Larson was going to be central to this entire weekend, just with him doing the triple header attempt, especially at a track where Kyle Busch has already done it twice. And but as I mentioned on my entry list storyline this week, it's like, look, there's other stories besides the Kyle Larson show, and I think, and I liked, even though it was to a smaller extent, I liked that there were occasionally attempts at least, to kind of focus on a couple of these. I like that Justin Haley got the recognition that he deserved for charging up to the second spot there and holding it for a while. I like that Denny Hamlin for a time was working his way up there and trying to catch Larson. And you can just tell that they just kind of reached a point about 40 or 50 laps to go where he just couldn't get any closer. And it was just a matter of defending the second spot there. And yeah, Hocevar as well. And that critical pit stop that either it slipped off the jack or some kind of problem with the left rear wheel, getting the car back out there, and then it dropped him off the lead lap and really messed up his day. Still had a decent run by the measure of what we've seen from some other performances, finishing in the 11th spot here unofficially. Haley back in the 13th spot there. But I'm glad that they were at least able to get featured here along the way. And then Ty Gibbs picking up at a track where he swept the stages in the spring race last year. Yes, admittedly, during all the chaos of like the tires coming apart and so forth, and finally getting that good run last week at Darlington, but then coming back out here, and having a top 5 finish there, finishing in the 3rd spot there. I'm glad that was getting recognized, especially after he dropped several spots in the opening run and had to kind of claw his way back up there too. Again, it's, and this is why I harp on the broadcast angle of this so much. It's one of the many reasons for it, is when you have a race like this where, yeah, it feels like the story's already written about halfway through, and you got a driver that's just this dominant, and it seems like, okay, the first paragraph is already written. It's going to be this winner. It's only a matter of time to figure out how many more laps to go. But yeah, there's other things that happen throughout the field and things that need to be recognized there at the same time. The other aspect of it, though, I think that needs to be addressed is when you do have a driver that's this dominant, like we saw with William Byron last week, it should be nerve-wracking. It should be presented as like, it's like, okay, perfection is so hard to attain in this sport because there's so much that's outside your control that you just can't do anything about. Again, you run over something, cut down a tire, have a bad pit stop, somebody else wrecks, forces a late race restart. You pick the wrong lane, you get scooped out of the way on on something like that. Anything can happen, and doubly so at the short track here too. And it would have been nice if Fox recognized that a bit more, because you could tell, I was tweeting this towards the end, obviously they were looking everywhere for a caution. They were looking for any minor incident that they could play up. And it always kind of feels that way when you have a race that, is a longer green flag run. And, I think the focus that could be maybe what's happening with other drivers in the field is kind of directed more towards, oh, that guy hit the wall, or, oh, that guy bounced off the wall, or, oh, this or that. And it's like, is that going to bring a caution? That might bring it out a caution. And then, of course, NASCAR just keeps it green and it's not a big enough incident. But in this case here, we did have an incident with about 9 laps to go where Kyle Larson bounced off the outside wall very clearly in turns 1 and 2. My brother and I are hooting and hollering at the screen, like I'm sure many of you were as well. And then right when we stopped, Clint Boyer's still blathering on about something, and just like nothing had happened. I'm like, and I was looking at him like, did that just happen? Like, I mean, we saw that, right? That was actually happening up there. That could have been just a massive moment. And then they could really ramp it up at the end and be like, it's like, oh, did he cut down a tire? Is there a fender rub? Is that, it's just a few laps to go. Is Hamlin going to catch him? It just didn't seem like there was any of that. And to the point where they were still, when they finally caught up and realized what happened with Larson there, they get across the finish line. They completely flub the call to the finish line. They're describing that Larson won when he's already on the backstretch on the cool down lap. It just seemed very disjointed. And I've said this in the past where, especially in the truck series, but I mean, admittedly, even in the Cup series here too, when there is something that there's not much that's happening, it almost seems like they don't know what to do because they've been so out of practice and doing like a through the field, like we saw in the CW race yesterday for the Xfinity series in the closing laps, at least going through about the top 10 or 12 positions. That was great to see. Those are things that need to be kind of brought up a lot more. So it's really been kind of an issue there. And I know this is going to get absolutely hammered in the was it a good race poll. I'm sure of that. But again, I don't feel as strongly about this being like the worst race I've seen. I mean, we did the broadcast over this offseason. I rewatched a race that I personally felt like was one of the most boring races I saw. And it was in 1999 at Michigan, where Dale Jarrett won a race where there weren't any cautions and only Jimmy Spencer fell out of the race. And it just seemed like nothing happened and the race was just over. And some races do just kind of come and go. I think where it should be concerning is like when it happens a whole lot of times in a row. And admittedly, maybe, there is going to be a stretch here where, maybe those concerns are something that'd be worth bringing up with Talladega in a couple weeks, with Texas after that. Um, I, I don't know, but, in isolation in and of itself, again, I am not that outraged or concerned. I mean, it just kind of, again, I like a race that feels like it's playing out to a natural conclusion. I'm going round and round on this, but I'm still trying to figure it out because I honestly don't feel that upset. I know a lot of people do, and I'm not saying they don't have a right to be. I think that I can definitely see why, especially if you're a fan of a driver further back in the field there. I think again, but I think there's some interesting stuff that was going on here, and that should end up being the story. AJ Allmendinger, being the fastest car in the race, going purple in the last, 60 laps of the race, after Kyle Larson had dominated all day. That was a big story. Especially the fact that I've honestly thought that Colleague Racing has been really off these last couple of years. They had an article that was posted this week about them having kind of a B plus start to the season. I think that's a fair assessment. I think Ty Dillon has done a solid job in that 10 car. That great run he had at Phoenix. He was pretty good last week at Darlington as well. There's some prospects there, much like with Spire, that maybe, they can turn things around there too. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. And this is not even to mention the last place battle as well, which had a little bit of intrigue too. We only had 3 DNFs here unofficially, and depending the results from post-race inspection here. Josh Bilicki starting last in the field there for Carl Long. Interesting to see the Manscaped sponsorship actually was a returning brand. They'd actually backed the number 66 back in 2020 when Timmy Hill was driving, of course, overshadowed by what was going on there with the circuit that season. But good to see a sponsor return to a team here and put forward an effort with them. Bilicki actually gained a few spots in the early laps. Unfortunately, got cycled back to last place there. And that was kind of the opening laps of this race, too. We talk a lot about drivers really kind of being very pensive out there, trying to save fuel and trying to conserve and everything at the super speedways. But in the opening laps of this race, where there were reports yesterday showing, much like we saw last year, with tires coming apart and shredding to pieces and so forth, this part here, I think I could definitely understand the frustration, because I know my brother really was frustrated about that. It's like, wait a minute, it's like there are all these pictures of these tires that were coming apart, and it's just slightly warmer today, and now the tires are perfectly fine, and there's just like nothing else changed, and everybody had an extra set of tires they didn't need and so forth. It's like, what the hell happened? And I get that. That's frustrating. But on the flip side of it, again, I thought the interesting thing in the opening laps, the first 40 or so laps, the interval from first to last stayed between about 5 to 7 seconds, and we didn't see that precipitous drop off there for other cars in the back of the field. And, Bilicki was kind of gaining a few spots. Nobody could kind of get their spot in line because everybody was kind of everybody's worried that maybe the tire's going to blow, and nobody wanted to be that first guy to hit the wall. And NASCAR Chasm did a great tweet about this, just posting a GIF of that jet flying by there, that once it seemed like there was any indication that tire was rubbering up, Kyle Larson just took off. And then suddenly the interval was 12, 13 seconds in the back of the field, and Bilicki gets lapped and other drivers get lapped. And then it just becomes, kind of the same race from there. So again, a little bit of interesting intrigue there at the beginning, admittedly, where it was hyped up, and like with a lot of hype, sometimes it just doesn't play out. It turned out to be kind of all for naught in that respect there. But Josh Bilicki there at the back of the field. Shane Van Gisbergen had a miserable afternoon there on the Bristol track there. It was really unfortunate to see. Got spun into the outside wall at the point. He was already about 2 laps down. He dropped 4 to 5 laps down at that point, coming down pit road, took the last spot from Bilicki, and ended up going to the garage area for repairs. Bilicki had an issue with the air conditioning system and the power steering system there at the same time. Ultimately got pushed behind the wall about 17 laps after Van Gisbergen was behind the wall. Van Gisbergen gets back out there at the end, I believe at the end of stage 2, and got him back out on track. And we didn't have, thankfully, any of the controversy that we saw from Kyle Larson at Darlington last week, where a car gets spun out and hits the inside wall at the end of the race. That wasn't the case here. Van Gisbergen, as far as I know, wasn't really in anybody's way out there. trying to keep up the pace, and ultimately pulled the car back out of the event when he couldn't gain any more spots. The only other DNF being Alex Bowman in the process there, the pole sitter with a blown engine, trying to hang on there too. Again, lap traffic at Bristol, I think, is one of the best elements of Bristol, even in a race where it's not that competitive. I imagine in person, it probably would have been pretty cool to see like the leaders kind of knife their way through traffic there. But regardless, again, Bowman ends up towards the bottom of the field there in the 37th spot. Then Gisbergen made up the 17 laps on Bilicki. About 5 laps after he passed him, he went to the garage a second time, and then ultimately was pulled up to the hauler, and that was done for the afternoon there. So a bit of intrigue there. Could have been the first last place run for the 88 at Bristol since 1965 with Buddy Baker. It ultimately turned out to be the first for the 66 since 2011 with Michael McDowell. So that ends up being your story again, pending the results of post-race inspection there at the same time. So we got all that too. Did the IndyCar race just conclude? I thought we were about further towards the end there. It looked like it was about 30 laps to go on my thing. So we'll see if that's the deal there too. I almost thought about waiting until the show that was over with. Ridiculous, just an absolutely ridiculous scheduling decision to have these races layered on top of each other and on the weekend of the Masters. I'm certainly not the first pointing that out there too, but yeah, certainly if they wanted to have both audiences check out the event, they made it sound like it was going to start like right after this race was over, which was just an outright falsehood. So I don't know what Fox is thinking here with their scheduling here. But you know, hopefully it was a good race, and we'll see what the deal was there too. Yeah, again, it may not, I mean, again, it's not, this wasn't, you know, Dale Earnhardt spinning out Terry Labonte. This wasn't even like the 2006 spring race here where you had like seams opening up in the track and Kurt Busch hanging on and Jeff Gordon getting in a fight with Matt Kenseth. That potential is always there at Bristol. And I would argue, I think that potential is there at a lot of tracks. I mean, who would have thought this many people would be upset about Fontana being torn up these many years later, where I remember, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was universally loathed, myself included. I mean, you know, it was in my own state, and I never really felt compelled to actually go to a race there until much later when the surface had aged and the racing seemed more competitive. Probably the turning point was probably like that 2013 race there too. But yeah, you know, and I think the one thing that I think needs to be said again at the conclusion of this race too is this is a driver that has zero business running Xfinity and Truck Series races. And oh yeah, we're going to bring this again. And you know what? It sounds like I'm just bringing this up out of thin air, but these drivers, and always these playoff caliber drivers, just insist on making themselves the story there again. You know, he gets, Larson misses out on the triple header at Homestead. He gets bumped by Sam Mayer on the late race restart. Misses out on winning that race, a race that he had utterly dominated, because of course he did. You know, and then comes back here for Bristol to do it, has a Truck Series race, isn't quite able to track down Chandler Smith there at the end of the race, but had a good charge there in the meantime. He was like 11th, and then he was 5th, and then he was getting up there, and it seemed like it was inevitable, just didn't quite work out that way, and then goes out and dominates the Xfinity race. You know, I get at the same time trying to come up with new challenges for you and trying to, like, you know, do a weekend sweep, and I'm sure there's an element of pride there in that, but somebody in the chain of command needs to say no. And I've begun, you know, saying this year, and I do stand by it, that it's unsportsmanlike. I really do believe that. I think it's perverse also. I think it's, you know, that we have to pretend that it's amazing that this driver pulled this off, when of course they are, when they're driving the best car in the field, when they have their pit crew, when they have their research, when they have enough sponsorship and enough tires and so forth. And not to mention the fact that they are who they are and they're expected to win. And, you know, I've always been in these conversations where it's like, well, Brock, I bet you enjoyed it when it was Harry Gant and Dale Earnhardt and Mark Martin doing it. It's like, no, I didn't. In fact, I didn't watch the Busch Series regularly until really the Cup Series guys were out of it. Now it's much more watchable than it's ever been. So yeah, no, it's the same now as it has ever been. And that's something that needs to be revisited. And, you know, there may come an opportunity where, you know, I kind of learn more about this process, you know, because on the face of it, it's just so unfair. It's ridiculous. I don't know if it's something where the sponsor, somebody is pushing this forward, And the thing that always gets under my skin about it is it's treated like, oh, well, we have to do this. It's like, oh, we have to do this, or Corey Day's not going to run the 17 or something. It's like, okay, well, that means somebody's grabbing the leash there. So who's doing that? Is it the driver? Is it the team? Is it the sponsor? Is it some other invested party? Because that's the one that needs to get the attention here. Because it's just absurd. You know, I mean, when a Cup Series driver wants to be even more great, they go out and they win more Cup races. That's what they should do. That's what they should focus on. And especially now where it's still the longest schedule in sports, where it has so few off weekends. I mean, this weekend being one of the rare ones here for the Cup Series. They should be able to go out there and compete, you know, and win more Cup races. I mean, you want to get up higher on that win total. It's something as much as I've never been a Jimmy Johnson fan, it's one of the things I've always respected about him, is that he hardly ever dabbled in it because he was past that. And honestly, he wasn't that good of a Busch Series driver to begin with, and he knew that too. And he gets into the Cup Series, and yeah, he just dominates. And these other drivers are, you know, have sour grapes about not being able to be as competitive. You know, your Kyle Busches and so forth there. Meanwhile, they're mucking around in the Xfinity Series. It's like, you know, they say, oh, it gets the extra laps. It's the extra practice, and it's going to help them compete. Well, at the end of the day, I'm seeing the same guy win all these Cup races here. So something else must be happening here. And I don't think that paradigm has changed so much that we need to look at it, even with the Cup car being so different from the Xfinity Series car too. I really don't. So it's just another chapter of this. And I think, you know, showing that Larson is capable of dominating a race this thoroughly. And yes, there still needs to be a conversation about the car and the track and PJ1 and the tires and all that other stuff. But that was the same case for everybody in that field. And yet Kyle Larson went out there and still just dominated it there. That's where it needs to be, you know, that's where the line needs to be drawn. And I said this in my video last year. And again, I still think it's probably the most fair solution. And in fact, could become a storyline in its own respect. If you have to have the playoffs, and we don't need to have those either, but if you have to have the playoffs, have anybody that makes it into the playoffs, they're automatically ineligible for Xfinity and trucks the next year. And have that change year to year. You know, I wouldn't even mind Kyle Busch getting back into the Xfinity and truck race here and there because, again, he wasn't in the playoffs last year. You know, if they need the extra laps, I think a driver that's actually struggling needs the extra laps. A driver that's a consistent playoff contender has no business being in those. And because it doesn't make it watchable. You know, I mean, it's one thing if they're dominating a Cup race, and that's probably another reason I don't mind today's race as much, because if a guy dominates a Cup race, well, that's the top of the top. That's as good as you could possibly get. You know, there's other drivers that have had, you know, several wins in their career, but maybe never had one race that they were ever this dominant. I have nothing but respect for that, honestly. You know, I try to be consistent when it comes to that. But I don't get the same feeling in an Xfinity or a truck race because it's just not a level playing field. It's just not, it's a foregone conclusion. If anything, I don't see why the drivers are so gung-ho about it, because when they fall short of it, they're going to get a lot of criticism. It's like, oh, you couldn't beat Brandon Jones, or you couldn't beat Chandler Smith, or you couldn't beat so-and-so. It's not like that other driver accomplished something. It's treated as a demerit to the Cup Series guy that's up there. You know, it probably could be argued that that's a matter of perception, but they're putting themselves in that situation. And again, at the behest of who, I don't know. It's whoever that is. I think that deserves. I think that you know, this weekend was a perfect example of why that's so backwards. And I don't care if it's only one time a year or two times a year. Think of it this way: if you have 16 drivers in the playoffs, 16 drivers that make that cut, and say each one of them does one or two Xfinity Series races, well, that's up to 32 Xfinity races a year. And there's only 33 races on the schedule. Well, I mean, there you go. I mean, if you just clean that off at the top, and yeah, I mean, does anybody have a problem with another driver further back in the Cup Series field running those races? Not really. You know, if you know, again, Ty Gibbs, for example, with him struggling this year and not being able to be as competitive, he ran some more Xfinity races and kind of got his confidence back. I understand the sports psychology of this. You know, yeah, you get in a situation where you feel like you're questioning your abilities and you're not going to be that good out there, yeah, that can take a tremendous toll. I understand that the same reason that I understand some of these drivers block me on Twitter. I get it. They don't want to hear about when they finished last place or something like that. And that's part of their deal. And I respect that totally. It's the same kind of situation there too. Of course, the other better solution would be to, of course, fix our rules about having more practice. We saw so many problems in this truck series race. We'll kind of hop around here a little bit. The situation that Norm Benning had, actually had a pretty intense discussion about this. I didn't count on it after the race there, contextualizing what on earth was going on with Norm Benning in that truck series race. And I get it. I understand the concern that people have going into this, especially at the concrete tracks. NASCAR gets very strict about minimum speed. Benning has certainly been afoul of that times before in his career. But the conclusion by this individual and some in the booth there were that he was just flagged off the track because he almost caused an accident by itself. But there was other things that were going on. There were radio issues these teams couldn't work out, and it wasn't just him. Steve Malazzi and the Josh Realm effort. There was Luke Fenhouse as well for Thor Sports. It wasn't just a small team issue. And even officials, they were relaying information on drivers that were falling out of that race, and yet they couldn't hear each other, and it was hard to relay that information. And so in those cases, you had people that weren't able to hear each other, and that was directly relevant in Benning's case, where he served a penalty. I believe it was for changing lanes for a restart, and then he came down pit road and he sped, and they were trying to tell him that he had sped on pit road and he needed to do another pass through. And NASCAR couldn't get that message relayed through. The team was trying to tell him, and he couldn't hear it. Then they eventually parked him, and they parked him because of that. Now, maybe in between, he was getting run over out there. I couldn't see it because the broadcast didn't show it. And, of course, I wasn't at the track, so I didn't have firsthand on there. So I'm not going to question whether that was happening. But there were other things that were going on there. And I understand, and I think it's important to get those details right because the story of a race is written so quickly. And people are just going to bag that up. They'll look at the race results and be like, oh, okay, it was Norm Benning fell out early. It must have been because he was too slow. It's like, well, it was not entirely that. It was other things too. That's where I think that's really important. And thankfully, it's very rare. It's becoming more rare that people are missing stuff like that. I mean, thankfully, there's a lot of people at the track that really do great coverage and really kind of show what's happening out there. And are able to provide that context. Some people are more comfortable in the media center and some people are more comfortable in the garage area. And that's fine. Everybody has different approaches and that's just what works for them. But it's nice that they're all there because they're able to kind of check off each other. I was in there at, I think it was at Phoenix, and there were people asking each other about like who got the lucky dog on certain cautions. And I thought I heard one number and then Bob Pockers chimed in. I was like, nope, that was this number. It's like, okay. Cool. I'm glad he was on it and he caught it. Because, one's ego should not be so strong as to insist on an incorrect answer. When somebody else is correct, it's like, okay, cool. I'm glad you caught it. Thank goodness there's people like that, in the sport there that have, that you can kind of anchor things to. And, more often than not, they're going to get the information right. That's kind of where all that factored into. So this kind of leads us into kind of discussion of the weekend in general here. I'm kind of looking, before I get into more on the Xfinity and trucks, I'll look at the race results here. Again, Ty Gibbs in third, Chase Briscoe fourth, Ryan Blaney in fifth, William Byron in the sixth spot, Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, AJ Allmendinger, again, the fastest car in the race here at the finish, gets the one bonus point, again, pending the results post-race inspection. In fact, was fighting Kyle Larson to stay on the lead lap right to the checkered flag, and unofficially still shows him the last car on the lead lap in the ninth spot. Austin Dillon was in the lucky dog spot, the checkered flag again, one spot ahead of Carson Hocevar with that great run. Josh Berry with a good run too, in the 12th spot there for the Wood brothers, right ahead of Justin Haley. Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott round out the top 15 there. But again, last place unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, will go to Josh Bilicki, and that will be your article later this evening. We'll go into the Truck Series and Xfinity. I already kind of opened the door on the Truck Series, so we'll kind of put a pin in that too. Kyle Larson, in fact, shut out of leading any laps in that Truck Series event, had at least one pit road penalty there that contributed to that. Chandler Smith pulling off the victory there, was very emotional and excited there, not only to beat Larson in the Truck Series race, but after we heard last year when he wasn't sure what the future was going to hold for him, when the Joe Gibbs deal fell through and it wasn't sure what was going to work out. But landed a great ride there, a second entry for the front row team. I didn't expect him to win before Lane Riggs this year, given how strong Riggs was at the end of last season, but there you go. But great effort there for Chandler, pulling off the win over Larson. Corey Heim, Tyler Akram, and Ben Rhodes. Interesting to see Heim even getting shuffled back a little bit in the running order there. Lane Riggs, Jake Garcia, Caden Honeycutt, again, coming so close to pulling off a win with a good run out there, but ends up dropped back to the 8th spot. Raja Caruth and Giovanni Ruggiero running at the top 10. Raja with a great run. I couldn't help but think back to Elliott Sadler in 2001 and Raja staying out there on the old tires and trying to hold off these people. Great battle up front. I thought there was some great battles there. The Fox booth couldn't care less about describing it, which was really unfortunate. They could have had some great sound bites among some of the young and upcoming talents that they could use in montages for years to come, but they decided to just talk about something else I don't even remember. And so those moments just kind of went by. Great. Again, great run for Raja Caruth. Be interesting to see how all these pushed him back behind the wall there at the same time. Looking at other drivers back there, Nathan Bird had a flat tire. Justin S. Carroll had the hood up on his truck as well. You had drivers coming on and off pit road constantly there at the very beginning of it, and it traded last place very intensely in the first opening laps there. However, Malazzi ends up with his third last place finish of this year in the Truck Series, taking a 2-finish lead now in the Truck Series Last Car Championship standings for 2025. So we'll see how things turn out. I believe now the 4th last place run in just these first 6 races here in the Truck Series for Josh Ram's number 2 effort. We'll see if that trend continues at Rockingham this next week as well. Norm Benning next to last there, again describing his situation there after 35 laps, dropping out of the event. Ty Majeski with an uncharacteristic accident there, collected with Frankie Muniz as well. Muniz apparently traveled back to Vancouver after the race and is going to start shooting the next season of the Malcolm in the Middle reboot on Monday. So we'll, I suppose, have more updates on that alongside his upcoming Truck Series efforts as he continues to run full-time in the Truck Series this year. Muniz ends up in the 31st spot ahead of Brandon Jones, making a run there in the Truck Series. Jones ends up with crash damage there as well in the 32nd spot there, looking further back. Other drivers to bring up here. Parker Kligerman back in the Truck Series for the first time since his disqualification at Daytona. Finished in the 14th spot there. It's a home track for the Henderson team. Charlie Henderson's team based in Abingdon, Virginia, just, I believe, just right around the same region as where Morgan McClure Motorsports was back then. But a 14th place run there for them. Solid finish out there. We'll see what the rest of their schedule looks like this season. Connor Bosack had a spin, ended up finishing back to the 24th spot. Bailey Curry looked very good out there, led 14 laps, had a suspension issue after damage, came down pit road. Again, that was another moment that I know I described on social media that was really lackluster. It really needed to be brought up as a bigger moment, especially as Curry still continues to fight for his first Truck Series victory. He's come close so many times. He and his teammate Caden Honeycutt are so much similar there, and we've seen drivers like Ross Chastain really break through back when they were full-time Truck Series drivers there too. That remains one of the stories that is going to carry over from week to week. Will things change next week in Rockingham? It's going to be hard to say. I have a sense we're going to have a pretty stacked field in both those races this week as well. We'll see what the entry list looks like there. But again, congratulations to Chandler Smith in that case there too. The Xfinity Series race, pretty open and shut. Kyle Larson utterly dominates the event, leading 276 300 laps, but that's not really the big story of that race now, is it? Certainly the big story was the big accident that occurred about 74 laps into the race there. Sheldon Creed spins off the nose of Dean Thompson and stops at absolutely the worst place on the track that you could, with the car sticking out perpendicular from the wall there. 4 cars come very close to colliding with him, and Brennan Poole nearly missed him as well, hooked the car hard left, and thank goodness it wasn't a T-bone accident, because that could have been a very serious situation, even with these new changes with the car and so forth. But Poole ends up sideswiping him there, rips off the entire right side of the car. The right rear assembly came loose from the car there as well, ended up further down the track. At the same time, again, very dangerous situation. Knocked the wind out of Brennan Poole there as well. Good to see him get out of that car under his own power there at the same time. But an absolutely brutal accident and an unfortunate deal for Alpha Prime Racing. I don't know how many cars are in their inventory, but hopefully something can be worked out to fix that thing up and get it to a track later this year. I'm sure that'll be a storyline coming up one way or the other there at the same time. And also cutting short his Dash for Cash effort there at the same time, dropping back to the 36th spot there too. The other heartbreak there in the early laps had to involve Mason Maggio, who ended up with the first last place finish of his top 3 series runs there, driving the second entry for Joey Gase with the Scott Austin effort. Scott Austin, of course, from the Floridian Motorsports effort that he drove for in the Truck Series. It was, again, it's always frustrating when you have a driver that gets their first last place finish, and I'm sure that's something that they're not excited about there too. But the one thing on my end here, when it is the first time, is it's good to actually kind of go back into their career and kind of discuss more of the moments that brought them into the sport here. It seems like it's been a while since we had a first timer with that kind of storyline to bring up there. So that was good to bring up. Big thanks to the Floridian Motorsports Truck Series team for having a good biography of him up there as well. That was used in the article that I posted this week here for him. But a brutal afternoon there for both him as well as Tyler Thomasy at the MBM Motorsports effort with Carl Long. Came down to kind of a war of attrition as to who was going to fill out the field there. Both Maggio and Thomasy bounced off the outside wall. Seemed like Thomasy's situation, they were going to be able to fix the car and get it back out. Unfortunately, couldn't take a qualifying lap, and thus they were too low in owner points to make the show there. Maggio ends up making the show, but it sounded like they were probably going to be packing up at the same time. Joey Gase came over to the crew and rallied them, and they were able to get the car piece back together and got the car on the grid. Looked like they did a great job, got the hood taped up, got the right side fixed up, presented the car for the start of the race. The team really rallied on the radio, too, right before the start. They were thanking each other for the effort they did to get back out there. And then wouldn't you know, just on one lap into the race, something fails in the right front again, puts them into the outside wall, and they're out of the race there. So it could be a real brutal sport sometimes, and you see that just as much at the back of the field, well, certainly more so than what happens among the regular contenders up front. But again, trying to turn things into a little bit of a positive angle there, featuring another driver that's working their way up the rankings there. So Mason Maggio ends up being your last place finisher on the Xfinity Series side. Tough break for Tyler Thomasy. I got to make sure to mention this here as well, certainly from the viewpoint of NASCAR's presence on YouTube. It was a tremendous deal there with Ellie Productions being on the Tyler Thomasy entries, both for Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. In fact, Thomasy had a good run just outside the top 20 on the race back on Friday, so that was really exciting to see. And the paint scheme they had on the 66 was just gorgeous. The black and red looked great. Again, I think when there's anything in the NASCAR YouTube community that, moves things forward, we've seen this before with Eric Eastep, of course, and his efforts over there, and the efforts actually with Brennan Poole, now to think about it, back at Phoenix there a while back. Unfortunately, Thomasy missed the show this time around. I don't know what the plans are going forward on that, but still, again, beautiful paint scheme, great effort. Hopefully, it's just going to be the first of many for that deal there going forward. But it was exciting to see. Ellie does great videos on his channel, just like Eric does at his, and it's good to see that get recognized out there as well. Will there be a last car scheme someday? You never know. That may be something in the cards, maybe further down the line there too. But I got nothing but respect for these guys jumping into that too, because I know that it's been exciting. Just when we had the small last car logo on Brad Perez's cars, trucks, or Norm Benning's as well. That's always been really fun too. So I know how exciting that could be at the same time. But again, all these are other storylines that happen throughout the field. I think that's something that we do a pretty good job of trying to emphasize on this show from one week to the next, even if the race itself wasn't really that good. Again, Kyle Larson's win was, not really in doubt in Saturday's race. You do have some other good runs. I mean, it's good to see two of the Sam Hunt Racing effort cars get in the top 10 for the first time since Road America a couple of years ago. You got Corey Heim in his last scheduled start in the 24. Beautiful paint scheme, by the way. Last Row really liked it because that upper deck car kind of looked like the old Sunoco car from years ago. So that was a good effort there. And then Dean Thompson in 10th, coming back from the contact there with Sheldon Creed that led to that incident there. But Thompson getting a good finish there as well is good to see, given his last place run earlier this year at Phoenix. But again, that'll be another story coming up there too. William Sawalich's season continues to be a bit of a struggle. This is a driver I thought was really going to, maybe not take off astronomically, but maybe be a bit of a surprise here this season. But unfortunately, he's pretty much leading. I think he's leading the last car Xfinity standings. In fact, after this past week with the bottom 5 finish, running in the back of Connor Zilich during a stack up there after Mason Massey spun out on the straightaway. That ends up being a short afternoon for him as well, finishing in the 34th spot there. Alex Labay ended up completing the bottom 5 with power steering issues. As we saw with Josh Bilicki in the race today, of course, not having power steering at Bristol is not really much of an option. It seems like these cars are, regardless of division, are pretty much impossible to pilot around the track here at the same time. Let's see here. So, let me check on this. We'll jump into, we'll get into trivia here in a little bit. That's most of what I have here for the top 3 series as well. If there's anything you'd like to include here at the same time, definitely mention. Bowser Jr., thank you for the heads up. I did get your DM here about the last place runs in other circuits there, so very exciting there too. So thank you for sharing that at the same time. And we'll go into that. So big thing I want to mention here, of course, is going to be a very exciting week coming up here. I think another reason I'm kind of just, not that all outraged about today's race here is, of course, this is going to be the start of our trackside coverage for 2025. I'm very excited about that. In fact, after the show here tonight, I'm going to be pretty much packing this stuff up here and getting ready to head back east. Lastbro and myself are going to be hitting the road tomorrow morning and heading back east to cover the action at the Rockingham Speedway, covering the both the Xfinity and the Truck Series and the ARCA East race out there. And then on the way back, we're going to be hitting Talladega the week after when the Cup Series returns, as well as the Xfinity and ARCA Series competing out there. Still waiting. We've had a couple of stumbling blocks with the credentials. Hopefully that works out there in the meantime. But otherwise, we're definitely going to be going out there regardless. We'll make things work out there in the meantime. And among those is going to be Thunderfest, which is going to be coming up this Thursday evening. So again, it sounds like it's kind of a tight turnaround, but we're going to kind of try to make it work here again this week. This Thursday between 4 and 9 p.m. In downtown Rockingham. Big thanks to Richmond County for being so helpful in getting me a space out there. I'm going to be in stall number 39, which is going to be at the festivities. I posted the map earlier this weekend. I'll post it again here this week. But I will be there. I'm going to bring copies of both my books, JD and Cope. I'm also going to bring my stickers and hats and so forth from the eBay store there as well. So if you'd like to meet up, or if you want to pick up some merch or just talk about last place action, I'll be there from 4 to 9 for that deal. And again, planning on being at both the days of activity there at Rockingham and Talladega the next week. And definitely this is something I wanted to have is be a big thank you to those of you supporting the website, especially those of you on the Patreon here. I know it's been a long wait. We did our last trackside coverage at Sears Point last June, but thankfully I was able to save up enough vacation hours at work and make this work out here. Big thanks to the folks over there as well. Been very supportive of my projects here as well and getting things worked out. So we'll be on the road for about 3 weeks here. And we got 2 magnets we're going to have on the door of the car. We're going to get we already got the names updated through now, but if you join the Patreon, any level at patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock, we'll add your name on there. You'll be entered in the drawing for both those magnets. We're going to have one that's going to be for the outward trip and one for the return trip there as well. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really good. It's going to be really exciting. Last Bro's excited about it too. We're going to trade off driving duties this week. And yeah, just check it out. So we'll follow it on social media. And then on top of this, as if that wasn't enough, the other thing that we're working on here too, first episode of Cartoon Network Wacky Racing is going to premiere tomorrow, Monday, at 7 p.m. Eastern. My plan is to moderate the chat from the road. I'm going to have Last Bro take over for the drive at that point there and kind of track what's going on with that. It's going to be a 3-night event. We're going to have that at, again, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So part 1, part 2, and part 3. If you can't wait that long, all 3 episodes are also in the Patreon right now. Patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. We got a great response from the Patreon members. They seem to really enjoy it as well. And I'm very excited to be able to share these videos with you too. And was originally planning on releasing these last week before the trip there, but you know what? Kind of gave it a little extra time there to make the intro to kind of bolt on to the episodes there, which I think kind of finished off the look of it there too. And yeah, hopefully it's gonna be something you guys enjoy there too. I really enjoyed putting them together. It kind of was a long process since last December, this January. And yeah, I'm gonna have some stories about some great paint schemes, and of course, my own favorite driver, Jerry Nadeau, being among the drivers that participate in that. So big thanks to him and the others for their interviews there as well. And you'll meet some new individuals, perhaps some you remember, perhaps some you don't, that will be able to tell the story of this sponsorship in the late 1990s there as well. So again, if you're crestfallen about the race today, I'll be working overtime here trying to get some stuff for you guys to enjoy here in the meantime. So make sure to stay tuned to my Twitter feed at LastCarOnBrock for more updates. Again, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock as well. That will not do we won't quite end the show there, though. We'll do some trivia here in the meantime. If you guys have any other questions, I'll jump into those. I know I have at least, looks like I have a super chat here to catch up on as well, so we'll get into that. Yeah, now I'll kind of browse the chat here in the meantime. Let's do this. We'll go ahead and do the categories here and see which ones you want, and we'll do some questions here. So we'll bring out the late 90s deal here. So once again, the categories are NASCAR pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Go ahead and mention which category you'd like, and we'll do some questions. And of course, any of your questions for anything else I missed from this weekend, I can look here as well. Let me check out my notes and see if we have anything on that. Do I have anything on there? Okay, I do have one other note. There was one other thing I do want to talk about. So I mentioned E-Step and Ellie Productions earlier, of course, with the deal there with their sponsorships. There's a couple other YouTube channels I want to give a shout out to. I meant to do this last week, but kind of in housekeeping here, I want to kind of mention this at the same time. A couple channels I've really enjoyed lately with the NASCAR content. NZCO has a really enjoyable channel. I love the statistical approach there, kind of similar to kind of a John Boy's deal. Really kind of breaking down, looks like he does mostly post-race videos. His post-race video for this is probably up by now. He always gets them produced so quickly. Really enjoy his videos out there. Appreciate the shout out when he includes the last car statistics. Really enjoyed seeing, being able to try to kind of understand what's happening with the season, who's the best of which team, who has the best average finish, just typical things you would like to see brought up, but brought up in a really efficient way there that's kind of easily understandable. And I think should be fun to kind of track through the rest of the season. He's got some other videos there. Definitely check them out. And another one I've also enjoyed, Fish Productions. I stumbled across them recently with their 2012 season in review and also kind of covering the Gordon Boyer rivalry from that same season. Did a great job breaking that down. I agree that 2012 season was kind of a lost year for me personally. But I do think that it was kind of it was a very overlooked season as well. Keselowski's championship run, and how he was really kind of putting Jimmy to task, especially that Texas race towards the end of the year. It definitely deserved another look. But that's definitely a big one to look at there. But yeah, again, that's always a year I kind of feel, that was kind of a transitional year for me. 2013 was kind of the big year that Last Car kind of started to take off a bit more. So 2012 was kind of the build up to that there. That's kind of what I was meaning in that context there. But again, fine memories, from that year and particularly that championship battle there at the same time, even with the old playoff system there at the same time. So we'll get into that. Let's see. In the meantime here, we'll do some trivia here in a little bit. Let me do super chats as well. Bowser Jr., thank you for yours as well. I'll get to yours in just a minute. We'll get, let's see, where was it? Should have it down here. There we go. Yes, Beast Metal 1989. Thank you for your super chat for $5.55. Somebody completely independent of NASCAR and their builders needs to run tests on this car so we can get honest answers on its engineering variables. Good question. Yeah, a good point, actually, rather. Yeah, something needs to be looked at with this car. Again, I'm not the most technically minded person, but, I think now, now that we're in a few years in, it just seems like we're kind of playing things by ear where it's like, reducing the number of strakes on the rear diffuser or, trying to figure out how to keep them from catching on fire or things of that nature. It's like we're reverse engineering this. They're just kind of like, trying to patch this thing into a better car than it is. Yeah, I think something, maybe, I don't know what kind of testing could be done, but I mean, it's something that I think would certainly help at this point. And I agree with your point on that. Maybe somebody that's independent and kind of looks at certain problems with it, maybe a way that even keeps, that makes the wheels easier to secure in place, or, just kind of addresses any issues with this car, and then maybe figure out the competitive angle of it. Yeah, I think it's a very good point, Beast of Metal. So I think that's something to look at there. But again, thank you for the super chat. And then also on here, Bowser Jr. XD. Yes, again, thank you for your list of last place finishers from this weekend's action as well. And I see you have a follow-up to this on there. One thing, not a last place finish from today. Defending MotoGP champ Jorge Martin finally got back to racing today, only to crash and break 6 ribs. Oh, that is absolutely brutal. So certainly hoping for Martin there to have a speedy recovery there too. Those guys are just absolute gladiators. I put them in the same category as like the IndyCar series there, with guys that are just absolutely, I mean, every motorsport, the competitor puts their lives on the line, but that line is so much more narrow in that circuit there as well. So that'll be another one to look at there too. Oh, NZCO was the channel, Big G. I see you're asking about the channel there. Yeah, that's those are good channels there at the same time. So definitely make sure to check those out if you haven't already. They got good content on there. Let's see. Alrighty. Just looking at our updates here at the same time. Yeah. All right. We'll jump into trivia here. But which category is leading? I'm going to take a drink of water here in the meantime. Oh, I do have something for show and tell here at the same time for the show this evening. So stay tuned for that. I'll have that in a little bit here. Just one moment here. Now, also a programming note here. I'm sure you guys are wondering, okay, so when's the next show going to be? It's going to be a few weeks here, and I have thoughts on that. My plan is I'm going to try to bring, maybe not my full-on setup here. Like all this isn't going to fit in the car, and that would be kind of crazy to do anyway. But I'm going to try to set up at least a travel setup to do at least one show while we're on the road. I think probably Easter Sunday would be an easy one to do. I'm a little iffy on doing holidays and stuff, as I figure that's time, people should spend with their families and so forth. But since we're already out there and covering the Rockingham race, maybe do something Saturday night, depending on how late we get back. I guess the one advantage is these 2 tracks we're covering don't have lights, so that should hopefully keep the day from being too awful long at the end of the day. But we'll see how things kind of turn out there in the meantime. But yeah, I'm bringing some equipment with me. I'd like to do certainly a Rockingham and a Talladega wrap-up show on the road if possible. I think that would make more sense than waiting 3 weeks and then coming back and doing another show after that. We'll see if we can make it work. Of course, that's going to be kind of contingent on how we can get kind of the setup working, like if the internet is going to work strong enough there to stream from there. I'm sure that I'm not the only one that's tried streaming from a hotel before. But, who knows how that's going to work out. If it doesn't work out, I could always record something, maybe post that later. I could try to work something out with that, maybe premiere it or something like that. We'll figure something out, but I'm going to try to bring the equipment with me to kind of set things up one way or the other. And, then we'll just kind of figure things out. So hopefully we get some shows on the road. I haven't done that in a while. I think I did one in Fontana back in 2020, and we did it actually from the hotel, like near the racetrack there. And that was actually pretty fun. Just do a short show there. But that would be something that we kind of look into there in the meantime. So yes, I am planning on doing some other content here in the meantime. In terms of produced content, I'm not going to probably get back into that until we get back from the trip here. Because I have a next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers that's coming together. Again, Brian Hallman, big thanks to him and his pictures. Tremendously helpful on this one in particular. I think this is going to be a good follow-up here to what we have in the Cartoon Network deal. But, we'll see how things turn out from there. Let's see. Did Rocky M add more safer barriers for the race weekend? Really would like to know if anyone knows. I assume they did. I know that, they must have had them back in 2012 when they did the Truck Series race. Was it 2012 or was it 2013? It was like right around that era. But that'll be another one to look at the same time. We'll find out. Definitely planning on checking out the action there at the same time. Anything new on the Frisky Nixon channel? I do not have any updates on that, Jimmy. I'm not sure what's going on there. Fingers crossed at the same time there, too. Jimmy also off topic next month, the All-Star race, will Harrison Burton compete in it? My understanding is I would think he would, but that raises a good question since he doesn't have a cup ride this year. The Wood brothers going to enter a second car or put him in. I can't imagine they would have to because Josh Berry won with the 21 car, so you got that issue. It seems like that would be interesting. I don't know if it's come up yet. I hope it has. But he certainly earned his spot there. But we've also seen, of course, Shane Van Gisbergen wasn't allowed to, or wasn't given the opportunity to compete in it after he won Chicago. So maybe we're on that trend there too. I don't know, but we'll see if that's going to be the situation. Just checking off screen here at this. Yeah, defunct sponsors, the Sport Kmart, Kodak. Yeah, I'm with you guys. Those are some classics. Although it's great to see the Kodak scheme there again on Parker Retzlaff's car at Darlington there as well. Alrighty. Kind of checking things out here in the meantime here. Whoop. Okay. I see the has anybody else had any audio issues? Okay, I see Beast of Metal's comment there earlier. Hopefully, excuse me. Hopefully, I wasn't in mid rant or something, and then everything just locked up. But I think we'll be from there at the same time. Looking in here, which category? Okay, let me look up here at the same time. Wild card drivers, teams, tracks. Pretty good spread here. I don't think we have a all-out leader here at the moment. Do we have a call on inspection? I don't think we do. I think it's still on the early side for that. There we go. Let's see. There's Balicki. Oh, great picture of Balicki going to the garage. We'll get that reposted there. Checking out this feed too. I don't see nothing else on that. Oh yeah, of course Bob's covering IndyCar, so yeah, that makes sense. So different deal there too. Interesting. And yeah, electrical issues, suspension listed reason out for Shane Van Gisbergen there after the multiple issues. They did talk about a control arm being bent on that car, but I was kind of surprised they even sent him back out there briefly, but that's just kind of how that turned out. Good stage points for Alex Bowman, despite the finish third to last, taking fourth in stage one and second in stage two. So he gets 17 points despite a poor finish there. So definitely the stage points paying off that way. Alrighty. Well, tell you what, let's go ahead and get into, oh, okay, we got the Masters concluding too. Okay, wow, we got a steady group here. I wasn't expecting a very big group here today. I figured it sounded like this weekend was pretty stacked with anything else going on here. I do appreciate you guys tuning in here as well. We'll wrap up with some trivia, probably make it a kind of a bit of a shorter show tonight. Got to finish packing for tomorrow, so we'll get that all set up here. Let's see, which category? Yeah, drivers, teams, wild card. Let's do a tiebreaker. I'll just do teams here, and we'll do a couple questions here to wrap up. All right, let's see. Okay, here we go. Here's a good question to lead off. So in the teams category, who drove 2 seasons for Pete DiPaolo before starting up a Ford-backed owner team? Let me read that again. Who drove 2 seasons for Pete DiPaolo before starting up a Ford-backed owner team? Don't look it up. Try to guess it there. I mean, the test there at Rockingham, that was definitely one of the reasons. The original plan was going to be doing Talladega and then Texas the next week. Even though we covered Texas before as the All-Star race, we haven't done a Cup race there yet. Did think about doing that, but then we kind of switched things up. I mean, there was so much hype with the Rockingham deal. Even though it's not a Cup Series weekend, undoubtedly, I think the trucks and Xfinity should put on a great show out there. And we got some interesting storylines. I'm a little surprised Jimmy McMurray is not entering it as a driver, at least as far as we've heard. Given his streak of consecutive wins, we do have Casey Kane coming out of retirement to run the Xfinity race there in the 33. We'll see other stories coming up this week. We'll be doing entry list storylines and having that up for you by Friday, so that'll be another story coming up. We'll see how it's going. Who drove 2 seasons for Pete DiPaolo before starting up a Ford-backed owner team is the question. Uh-oh, are we locked up again? Hopefully we're not locked up. I think seems like we're still getting answers. Seems like it's okay on my end. Hopefully we're good. Guesses for Ricky Rudd, Junior Johnson, Del McCowart, Lake Speed, Ned Jarrett. We will see. All right, one more time. Who drove 2 seasons for Pete DiPaolo before starting up a Ford-backed owner team? That is the question. The answer is Ralph Moody. Ralph Moody. How about that? The recent Hall of Fame inductee. Ralph Moody is the correct answer. I don't think anybody got that. Del McCowart. Still buffering. Are we still buffering? Hopefully not. That would explain why. It's kind of a scattershot group here. Definitely let me know if anybody else is having problems. Probably going to wrap up here pretty soon anyway. So if it's really locking up, we'll just wrap up early here anyway. Alrighty. Let's see here. Let's see. Moving up the list here. We'll do one for drivers and one for wild card as well. We were buffering, not anymore. Okay, good. Are we out of? Okay, good. We're not there. Okay, I'll do one each. Yeah, I like the idea of doing one each for these categories. Let's jump into those. In the drivers category, who was the first modern era rookie to win a 125-mile Daytona 500 qualifier? Who was the first modern era rookie to win a 125-mile Daytona 500 qualifier? That's our question. Stream is all good. Okay, good. Oh, Beast of Metal. Yeah, you're just ahead of the curve a little bit on the Ralph Moody question. All right, we got answers for Jeff Gordon. We got Gordon all across the board here so far. Who was the first modern era rookie to win a 125-mile Daytona 500 qualifier? And the answer is indeed Jeff Gordon. You guys got it. You're too good. You're too good. Jeff Gordon's the correct answer. And we'll wrap things up with the wild card here. Let's see. Not that one. And not that one. Alrighty. All clear on inspection. Do we get a call there on that already? Okay, that's good. Imagine everything else went by so quickly. I guess that did too. Yep, there it is. 27 seconds ago, Cup Tech is complete. No issues. Larson is the winner. No cars to R&D. So there you go. So Josh Balicki will be your last place finisher for today, and Larson is the winner. So congratulations, Kyle Larson, on an utterly dominant victory at Bristol today. Yes, I have something for show and tell. Yes, thank you, Jimmy, for reminding me. I'll wrap up with that. We'll do this question here. What's actually we'll split it here. We'll do it during the everybody getting answers to this question. What car did Tim Flock and Herb Thomas win championships with in 1952 and 1953? I'll read it again here. What car did Tim Flock and Herb Thomas win championships with in 1952 and 1953? That is the question. Ready, and let me jump into the thing I have for show and tell here as well. So this is in conjunction with the Cartoon Network Wacky Racing project, and I found this. So there was I found an eBay listing about 2 months ago where this guy, so proper context given here. So there's a company out there that I guess when companies go out of business and they clear out the inventory in there, they get to keep whatever's left if it's just kind of left behind to get thrown away. And one guy actually went to a building in Los Angeles and cleared out the inventory there and found out that it actually had a collection of artwork that was produced specifically for kids' meal toys made for Burger King back in the day. And he had some of these on list, and they're actually the original artwork here, just not framed or anything, just stuff that was just left in a pile, I guess, and luckily saved it. And one of these here, check this out here. This is an actual artwork that was done for toys promoting Cartoon Network Wacky Racing in 1997. And you got this promotion here with the Scooby-Doo car here, and a picture of like a Scooby having his head pop out of the roof of the car there. And then you got Magilla Gorilla and Secret Squirrel there, and the Speed Buggy there as well. And here, let me kind of show you this a little better. I scanned this into the video, but a really kind of interesting artwork. And again, just on this unfinished piece of paper, I talked with one of the people I did the research with, and they said that they would kind of produce these art renderings and then kind of use that to make like a clay model of the actual product before they would actually produce it for marketing. But yeah, kind of the original artwork that was done for this. And of course, it has the iconic Wacky Racing, the Cartoon Network Wacky Racing logo, and a pretty neat deal there. So something else to look for in the video that's featured in one of the episodes there, and as well as that paint scheme from back then. So yeah, a great paint job that was done, an interesting artist render there at the same time. So again, I think it's one of the things that made this project so enjoyable. I didn't plan on taking as much time on it as I did, but it seemed like the people that were involved in it, whether it was the designers or the drivers or anybody in between, these were fond memories. Even if it wasn't maybe the most successful program in terms of actual on-track performances, and you'll see that in the video there as well, they really enjoyed it. I think they really did something creative and fun with it, and they weren't sure what direction they were going to go with it. And we really see the effect of it today. Every once in a while you get a cartoon mascot on a paint scheme or something else there. There's still a legacy to that too at the same time. But a lot of interesting stories there, and I can't wait for you guys to check that out this week. Let me go into the answer here again. Once again here, the trivia question here. What car did Tim Flock and Herb Thomas win championships with in 1952 and 1953? So there we go. Oh gosh, Two Stupid Dogs. Now there's a throwback too. Absolutely. Let's see. Yes, these toys actually did get produced. I actually have memories back when I was, gosh, I guess it was middle school back then. But yeah, I tried to find them. I know I have a box that has some of these, and I couldn't find them on hand. I wanted to kind of show that at the same time. But yeah, both of these actually got produced. And I do remember you'll see a picture of that in the video. I know I had a picture of another release that was made afterwards that kind of showed other cars made for the promotion. But these were released right around the time of the 1997 Daytona 500 in mid-February to early March. And these were two of, I believe, five that they made then. And three of them are Cup cars. Kind of a little bit of a teaser for the video there. Actually, I won't spoil that. Two others were other Cup cars, and you'll see that kind of in the video there at the same time. But one of those three was this one right here with the old Scooby-Doo paint scheme. So there we go. But again, really cool render of it there. And having fun with that little pullback car there produced for that promotion. All right, I guess it's for the Hudson Hornet on that question. Others for the Hudson Hornet, Oldsmobile Mercury. All righty, here we go. Whoop, turned off here. Let me turn it back on. What car did Tim Flock and Herb Thomas win championships with in 1952 and 53? And indeed, the answer is the Hudson Hornet, and a lot of you got that one. You're too good. You guys are too good at this. Absolutely. 611 Hornet. I think Beast of Metal got just ahead of you on that one. No Tires, Just Gas got it as well. Charles Peterson Jr. got it. And further down, I saw Dana Lee's got it as well. So congratulations to all of you on that there as well. So, again, kind of a little bit of a shorter show tonight. We're going to wrap up here and get ready for that. And yeah, so by all means, please stay tuned to my social media these next couple of weeks. We're going to really kickstart our 2025 schedule with some coverage these next couple of weeks, starting with Rockingham this weekend and continuing through Talladega next weekend. The articles, the entry list articles, will still be up for those weeks. We're going to try to do at least one stream while we're on the road. We'll have more details on that. Again, tentatively, we're going to set it for next Sunday for Easter. If not, maybe the night before, depending on when we get back from Rockingham for the Xfinity Series race. We can kind of talk about the truck and Xfinity Series action and stuff from that. If you're in the area, be sure to stop by Stall 39 over at Thunderfest this Thursday. Again, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., I'll be there signing copies of the book. If you've already picked up a copy of your book, make sure to bring that, and I'll be happy to sign that as well if you'd like. Otherwise, we'll talk about last place action and so forth. It should be a tremendous time there as well. It'll be right between the beer garden, and Linda McDuffie is going to be there as well. She's actually got her own table set up nearby. She didn't know I was going. I didn't know she was going, but we're both going to be there. So that'll be something exciting there as well. So make sure to stay tuned to that at the same time. So a lot of great stuff coming up here. We'll be keeping you apprised of what's going on in the meantime. And yeah, I think, it cut out again. Okay, I think we should be right back in here again. So we'll wrap up with this here in the meantime. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show here tonight, and we'll see you all on the road. And stay tuned again for tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific for the introduction of part 1 of 3 of Cartoon Network Wacky Racing, the beginning of a 3-night event, Monday through Wednesday this week as well. So a lot of activity coming up your way. If you like produced content, trackside stuff, we'll try to have it be your one-stop shop here for these next couple of weeks. So thank you so much, everyone, for your support, for checking out the show here tonight. Could not do it without you, and that is extremely true. And we'll pick things up from there in the meantime. So stay safe, everyone. We'll see you all next time.